The Book of Runes. Ralph H. Blum. I wanted to do this out of my other series I've been doing where I'm just chatting and start just documenting one book at a time, getting an introduction going so that you might follow future talks, what I'll be discussing, because it will all relate to whatever it is I'm reading about, whatever's in my space. So this book I was really excited to discover. I do have a number of tarot decks, oracle card decks, kind of just out of interest of the art and the folklore and the stories behind them. That's quite a theme for me, is general interest in things. And I was out and about yesterday. I was running some errands, had just a couple stops to go to. And then when I was coming home, I wanted to stop by a little shop that's fun to browse. Kind of new agey, but they have a little coffee shop and they have coloring books. And I've been on the hunt for coloring books that are stained glass printed. And I actually found two cool ones there from, of course, my favorite coloring book publisher, Dover. I have a bunch of theirs, mostly from like museums, just random history coloring books. I don't know. They're left blank. I just think it's an interesting medium. That's the child in me. But I subscribe to a woman named Tina, and she was doing a series on runes, a series of talks. And the first one I'd heard, she mentions it was the rune of defense, which is also symbol for the yew tree, the tree of life. So that my thumbnail there is from this book. And it's Odin on the Yggdrasil, or the world tree, and he spies the runes. The speech of the High One. I know I hung on that windswept tree, swung there for 9 long nights, wounded by my own blade, bloodied for Odin, myself an offering to myself, bound to the tree, that no man knows, whither the roots if it run. None gave me bread, none gave me drink. Down to the deepest depths I peered, until I spied the runes. With a roaring cry I seized them up, then dizzying and fainting I fell. Well-being I won, and wisdom too. I grew and took joy in my growth. From a word to a word, I was led to a word, from a deed to another deed. That's from the Poetic Edda, circa AD 1200. And another great theme I want to follow. This is a quote from the beginning of the book. To lend courage to virtue and ardor to truth, by Dr. Samuel Johnson. Another little tidbit from this book. From the sacred Hindu text, the Bhagavad Gita says it well in chapter 6, verse 5. Lift up the self by the self, and don't let the self droop down, for the self is the self's only friend, and the self is the friend's only foe. The footnote, when you're reading, describes the first self with a uncapitalized S is used to represent the little self or the ego self, and the capitalized self is to signify the higher self or the divine within. So, for the divine within, the ego, they challenge each other, right? So I found it interesting that my introduction to this book was really through Tina, her channel, her commentary on the ancient runes made me stop by this new agey store and just get myself my own set. And I'm very, very intrigued. Before sitting out to type this, I sat down, typed some notes, and pulled a rune, and it ended up being the blank rune, the 25th, called the Unknowable, the Divine, Odin, the All-Father. Blank is the end, blank the beginning. This is the rune of total trust and should be taken as exciting evidence of your most immediate contact with your own true destiny, which, time and time again, rises like the phoenix from the ashes of what we call fate. The appearance of this rune can portend a death, but that death is usually symbolic and may relate to any part of your life as you are living it now. Relinquishing control is the ultimate challenge for the spiritual warrior. Here, the unknowable informs you that it is in motion in your life. In that blankness is held undiluted potential. At the same time, both pregnant and empty, this rune comprehends the totality of being, all that is to be actualized. Drawing the blank rune may bring to the surface our deepest fears. Will I fail? Will I be abandoned? Will it all be taken away? And yet our highest good, our truest possibilities, and all our fertile dreams are held within that blankness. Willingness and permitting are what this rune requires, for how can you exercise control over what is not yet in form? The blank rune often calls for no less an act of courage than an empty-handed leap into the void. Drawing it is a direct test of faith. The unknowable represents the path of karma, the sum total of your actions and their consequences, the lessons that are yours for this lifetime. And yet this rune teaches that the very debts of old karma shift and evolve as you shift and evolve. Nothing is predestined. What beckons is the creative power of the unknown. Whenever you draw the blank rune, take heart and know that the work of self-change is progressing in your life. With that, I thought we'd begin our conversation on the study of the ancient, and we'll have some more to come. Bye.